Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
What up, what up? Different intro today because I have continually done the same intro for far too long and I don't like the monotony. I like to switch things up sometimes. I got into a rhythm of saying, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, right? And I don't want to do that shit. I want to do whatever I want. And as you guys can see, this is if you're watching the video podcast, you can see I've got all black everything today. I actually have a black desk, black chair, black shirt, black pants. And this is of no importance to you guys whatsoever, but I'm telling you anyway, as usual. And it's because me and Mouse switched desks. She's taking exams. I'm working out here. And it was just more convenient for her to move her desk in there and me use this one. So anyway, let's get into more important matters for why you guys are here. Minisode number 95. Let me get my mic. I think this is good. Minisode number 95, 5 tips to gain athleticism with your workouts. I feel like this is a goal that a lot of people say that they want. However, I don't think there's too many people going to the gym regularly looking to gain muscle and lose fat that are playing in any street ball games or playing a football game, right? Or something like that. I think that more so whenever people say they want to be more athletic, I think they want to move good, right? They want to feel good whenever they move. They want to be strong, and they want to look like an athlete, right? They don't care necessarily about training for the Olympics, right? They just want to look like an athlete. And I think the biggest problem I see people doing whenever they have this athleticism as their goal is they can get too caught up in trying to make every exercise quote unquote functional, right? They're trying to make their entire program, while activating their abs, right? This is why you see people doing squats on Bosu balls, for example, right? They're like, oh, it activates your core really well. It's like, well, actually all you're doing is a very piss poor job at both strengthening your legs and then also challenging your core, right? So just because an exercise is harder doesn't mean that it's more effective, right? It's just a mediocre way of training multiple things. And so with this minisode, I want to tell you 5 tips on how to actually gain athleticism without feeling like you're training for the Olympics, right? For the most part, most of you guys enjoy strength training, enjoy more bodybuilding type training, maybe a little bit of circuit training, cardio work, et cetera, right? So here's how I would do it and how I schedule in this stuff with my clients who really want to make this a focus. So the first tip is one of the best ways to gain athleticism is to actually get stronger. So absolute strength, total body strength, while most importantly, using a full range of motion, right? You want to be an athlete, you're going to have to be limber. And if you want to be limber, you're going to have to make sure that you do squats with a full range of motion, right? You're not just barely bending your knees, throwing on a bunch of weight, and then feeling like you're strong, right? No, the athlete is strong throughout an entire range of motion. And it's also, you have to remember that lifting is just loaded stretching, basically, right? That's what squats, deadlifts, all these things are. You're lengthening and shortening your muscles, right? So that's kind of the whole gist here. And if you want to become more athletic as a unit, you need to increase your total strength, and this is with typically the main lifts, right? Squat, bench, deadlift are going to be the main ones. You also have like power cleans, for example, are going to be a really good one, but I want to especially emphasize the posterior chain and your posterior chain and your glutes, because I think this is something that athletes really crush. And it's because most of your power comes from there. Your speed comes from your hips, your glutes, right? Your core, all your power, speed, strength, et cetera. It starts with that posterior chain and also in your core, but lots of times your low back, your abs, your upper back, your hamstrings. If you go and look at any sprinter or runner or anybody who looks like an athlete, especially football players, like whenever you see football players, look at their hamstrings. You can tell the dudes who are really strong and really fast, just look how dense and like thick their hamstrings are. But yeah, so make sure that you pay extra attention to that posterior chain with things like deadlifts, RDLs, hip thrusts, single leg hip thrusts, right? All of these different, like good mornings, glute ham raises, right? The list goes on and on and on, right? But really pay extra attention to your posterior chain and your glutes, which can be, for girls, not skipped as often, but for guys especially. With all my guy clients, I'm like, you have to train your glutes, not only because your ass will look great in pants and you want to avoid that pancake ass, but also because it helps with functionality throughout your entire body and it gets you stronger, it makes you feel better, it balances things out, right? So yeah, that's going to be my first tip. Increase total strength with full range of motion, especially in the posterior chain and your glutes. Number 2 is going to be incorporate unilateral movements. So this is quite simply just one-legged or one-armed movements. Right, so big ones that I really like would be something like a single leg RDL. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you've seen that I like the barbell landmine single leg RDL. It's whenever you put a barbell like in the corner, for example, and then you, it's going to be difficult without a picture or video, thanks, but look it up, barbell landmine single leg RDL. It's a great movement that I've been incorporating recently that I really enjoy. But unilateral movements, they're just going to they're going to strengthen both sides equally, so it can help work out some of those imbalances, but it's also going to help with your core stability, right? So you are strengthening your core stability under load, right? And it's also going to help with flexibility as well, because maybe whenever you do bench press or whenever you do squats or something, you may compensate on one side or the other. So this really helps you nail in your form on both sides equally. And so, yeah, and then of course, with the real athletes and things, you're going to have to do a lot of pivoting and jumping and things off of one leg. So that's also going to be super important. So number 2 is incorporate plenty of unilateral movements in your training. Number 3 is a simple one. Add in some jumping, right? And whenever I say add in some jumping, please do not immediately go to box jumps. I think that box jumps have been used incorrectly by Instagram influencers everywhere, or not exactly, well, they are used incorrectly, but the reason people post them doing box jumps on really high boxes is just for entertainment, right? There's not exactly a pure carryover into their workouts, right? It's more so just like, how can I impress the people around me, right? Because if you do those, like, there's no reason to try and see how high of a box you can jump on. There's a reason why they don't have how high can you box jump in the NFL Combine, right? For example, they have verticals because that's going to test how high you can jump, and there's way less chance of injury than jumping on a box and skinning your fucking shins to pieces, right? With box jumps, you can do box jumps if you really enjoy box jumps, but literally however much height you think you need, cut it in half. Because all you need the box for is to land on. So you can still jump as high as possible, but the risk is much lower because you're not actually trying to leap up onto a surface. You're trying to jump as high as you can and then land with as soft feet as possible. Because that's another sign of athleticism is can you jump up on that box really high, or can you jump really high and then the landing on that box, how soft can you make your feet, right? Whenever you land, that's real control. That's real deceleration, right? So you jump, and then how can you manage that landing? That's going to be huge. So if you are going to do box jumps, cut the box in half, right? Jump as high as you can, but then work on the soft landing. Another easy one that I've been doing a lot recently is just adding in some jump rope. It makes me feel much more athletic and productive whenever I'm doing jump rope in between sets of like bicep curls, for example, if I'm doing something with upper body, right, where my legs aren't being used basically at all. So in between sets, it's no problem for me to pick up the jump rope and knock out 30 to 50 jumps, right? And it adds in a little bit of cardio, keeps your heart rate up a little bit, makes you break a sweat some. But it's also not taking away from that main lift. Like if you're doing squats, it's probably not a good idea to do jump rope in between because you're only fatiguing your legs more and you won't be ready for that next set. So if you're going to do some jumps, do something. You could do those like box jumps. You could do bound jumps, right? Which is where you just try and jump as far forward as possible. Again, don't be an idiot here. If you get hurt, you can't keep training. So just try and go maybe an 8 or 9 out of 10, and then try and beat that over time, right? Okay, number 4 is going to be throwing some transverse plane core work. So transverse planes, there's different planes. There's sagittal, right? There's frontal. There's transverse. Transverse is basically just transverse plane. So whenever you're doing Russian twists, whenever you're going back and forth with a med ball, for example, whenever you do wood chops, right? Whenever you do med ball slams or med ball throws, like sideways into the wall, right? That's using your transverse plane. It's multi-directional. It's where athletes spend a large majority of their time. So throwing in some type of transverse plane core work on a regular basis is going to be a really good idea. I would also add in some core/hip stability work, like loaded carries. So that'd be like farmer's carries. I think this is super easy. All you do is pick up some heavy dumbbells and then walk for, whatever, 30 to 50 steps each, right? That could be something as simple as that. Just walk back and forth until it gets hard. That's usually what I tell my clients. I'm like, pick up some decently heavy dumbbells or decently heavy kettlebells and walk until it gets difficult. You try and stay upright as much as you can. And just walk back and forth. You could also do, I like also, I don't know if they're called suitcase carry, farmer's walks, but it's just basically using one dumbbell or one kettlebell on one side. And then, so if I have the kettlebell in my right hand, I'm going to hold my left hand out and make a fist, right, to counterbalance my weight. And then I will walk like that. You can also use one heavy dumbbell on your right side and then one lighter dumbbell on your left side. So then you have a little bit of a counterbalance, but it's still awkward. But that's the whole point, right? You're trying to stay upright. You're trying to stabilize your hips and your core as you walk. And that's a really good way to, again, just kind of reinforce that athleticism, functionality, stabilization, and strength all in one. And lastly, the structure of your workouts. I'll make this quick. So in the very beginning, this is going to be your explosive high speed exercises. So things like jumps, sprints, athletic lifts. If you're going to do explosive work, for example, if you're going to do the box jumps, like I said, you want to make sure that you are giving it your all, but you're only doing, let's say, 3 jumps, right? So you would do maybe 3 sets of 3 or 5 sets of 3 on the jumps and jump as hard as you can. And then after that, you can go into something like squats, right? So on your leg day, start with some type of jump, start with some type of sprint, nothing crazy, right? Don't get too wild, but just to work that explosivity, high speed exercises, so jump, sprints, athletic lifts, put that first. Number 2 is going to be heavy strength training moves. So this is the strength portion of the workout, right? This is that increase, that total body strength. So squats, deadlifts, etc. For this, I would say anywhere from like 3 to 6 reps is going to be ideal here. I don't like going in the 1 to 2 reps because then it's just, there's no real reason for most people to do that.